both players getting into the game. So I'll mention real quick, both of these players have played in the Midwest Cup before. They've both placed very, very well, with Playa placing 3rd place and Hypernia placing 1st place this last tournament. So we'll see if, not Hypernia, Honeybear, mix up their names. Alright, so we'll see if Honeybear can defend his title, defend his champion's title, keep that belt on him, and we'll see if Playa can overcome the Zerg race that he so strongly dislikes, to be honest. And we'll see if we see a little bit of salt coming out of Playa, to be honest. But you know, either way, I think in some degree it's in jest, really. I mean, you always have that like matchup with that style that you just really, you're like, oh, I can never beat. Like me playing against like a Mech Terran, I'm just like, man, I cannot beat Mech Terran. How does this game even work? Maybe for Playa, certain styles of Zerg, he's just not the biggest fan of. However, talk about these players spawning in Overgrowth, a very popular map, a very common competitive map. We have our Red Zerg Honeybear. And up in the top right hand side of the map, trying to take this championship away from Honeybear, wanting to place higher than the 3rd place that he finished last time, it is Playa. That is our yellow Protoss. So I don't think I've seen, well, okay, so I don't think I've seen Honeybear play against a really high level Protoss such as Playa. So I'm not too sure what he's really going to pull out for this one. I am a little bit curious, and it should be very fun to see. And I am currently that production value, yo. Alright, properties, change his color, doop-doo, derpin like no other, don't worry about it, guys. A failure, alright. Just kidding. Reno Black. Boom. Let's do this. Bold. Alright, production value. Off the charts right now. Alright, so let's see what's going on in this game. So, Honeybear, very typically a very aggressive Zerg. He is opening up with this. It's not super aggressive. It's a pretty standard 14 spawning pool. From Playa, we are seeing a gateway into a gas, which is also not terribly. I mean, it's nothing completely extremely special. Going for that cybernetic score, and then he's probably going to take down or bring out an expansion at his natural after that finishes up. He also chooses to pylon block Honeybear, which usually people end up canceling this because it really ends up being less efficient anyway to let it finish, but Playa wants to keep that natural expansion down for just as long as possible. I wonder if he's maybe even going for maybe a little bit of mind game of like trying to actually force Honeybear to go ahead and go for those quick 2 additional hatcheries. And then let's say Playa, because he did this cybernetic score opener, he will get warp gate technology out pretty quickly. He hasn't started it yet, and he's not like chronoing it out or anything. So that is a little bit curious to me. I wonder if maybe it's a Stargate follow-up? Does he have a proxy pylon? He does not. There's a couple of Zerglings coming up from Honeybear. He's going to put some pressure onto Playa. Playa will complete his wall off. It really looks like he's going for some sort of Stargate play, honestly. He's banking a lot of gas. He hasn't started up Warp Gate tech yet. And, I mean, Honeybear, he probably saw, or he really should have seen, if the cybernetics core was spinning, you know, showing that it was upgrading that warp gate technology, and so he's got to know maybe something else is going on. Because from Honeybear's point of view, he knows there's been a Cybercore expansion, but without that warp gate tech coming out right away. So he's sending in this Overlord. He wants to see if there's anything extra that he can see. All the while, he's been going for that quick Zergling speed that well, not super quick Zergling speed, but he likes to get Zergling speed out, take his drones off of gases, and then go ahead and he'll have speedlings for map control, and then he will be just mining a whole lot of minerals to be able to get that drone economy going in the early stages of the game, so that later on he's able to just macro really hard. Honeybear does scout out this Stargate, and he starts up a spore in each of his bases, which is very, very good of him. He should be quite safe against the Oracle that is coming out. There are a couple Zealots as well, though, and actually, well, it's not the end of the world for Honeybear, that's for sure, and it wouldn't be regardless, but a couple of Zealots like that can catch you off guard, and if you haven't made any Zerglings to deal with them, and even then Zerglings don't deal with them very efficiently, but he will have a good amount of speedlings. He will have a couple of queens as support as well, and he should clean up these Zealots pretty easy. He's losing an Overlord that's scouting out the natural base of Playa, but did he see... okay, he saw these buildings coming down, so he probably saw that it was a robotics facility follow-up as well, and he knows that right now Playa doesn't have a lot, so he's going to come in, he's going to... that attack move AI just kind of attacks against the Photon Overcharge Nexus. Playa nicely blocking off his wall at the top of his ramp, but Honeybear is just going ahead and he is reinforcing this pretty heavily. It looks like he wants to keep that aggression up. He'll probably wait until the Photon Overcharge finishes up. He's got that timer in his head that he knows when it's time to attack again to force out, at the very least, another Photon Overcharge out of his Protoss opponent. All the while, he's going up to a lair. He's got a couple more gases coming down. So some pretty delayed gas income coming in from a Zerg player, but it will be followed up by a pretty big explosion of extractors to get all that gas. The Photon Overcharge comes down on the Nexus, but Honeybear's just going for this round, and he might... I don't know if he'll be able to clean this up. Okay. I was about to say, it's going to be... it looked like it was going to be very close with that Nexus as to whether or not he would actually take it down. He only got 2 workers killed based off because of that Photon Overcharge. It made the auto attack of the Zerglings go on the Photon Overcharge instead of going onto the probes. So some people might argue that it would have been better to just chase the probes down, but Honeybear chose to do it that way, and we'll see if maybe it makes it easier to pick off that base in just a few minutes time. He's taken off a lot of the actual health and not just shields of that Nexus. Do we have any technology? Okay, we have a Hydra Den down for Honeybear, so he's gonna go for that Zergling Hydra timing, although it's gonna be pretty late. Usually, because Honeybear has dedicated a lot to this aggressive Zergling attacks, it has definitely slowed down the amount of time it would take to get the Zergling Hydra push out. Usually you want to get that push going before the Protoss is able to have any Colossus coming out. However, Playa, he's got a lot of tech going on. He's got a lot of options. He could make Colossus, and he is starting one up, but he is also finishing up with this Warp Prism while he has a Dark Shrine in the background as well. So with that Dark Shrine he can make some DTs. Looks like he's probably, he was going to be rallied down to Honeybear's base, but we'll see if he turns around based on the Zergling counterattack that it's going to try and take out the third base. Photon Overcharge comes down to defend it. He's got a couple of DTs there to help clean up the Zerglings as well, and it will push Honeybear out of there. He kills off 3 drones, but pretty well defended by Playa. He didn't take a whole lot of damage, but he does... well, I don't know about this Zergling Hydra follow-up, because he... I don't know, he might have enough. from either sides. I'm not sure who wins that fight, to be honest, because the Colossus and the Archon are very good against both Zerglings and Hydras. However, an overwhelming amount of Zerglings and Hydras could be really hard for Playa to handle. However, at the same time, Playa is warping in some Zealots and Dark Templars in the main base of Honeybear, and Honeybear doesn't have a lot to deal with this. He has a lot of Spore Crawlers, so he has very good detection, but he has no army, and it looks like he ends up taking his whole army back home just to try and defend against this. So really, that's what Playa wanted to do. Playa wanted to buy some time for himself. Playa knows that Honeybear has dedicated a lot to these aggressive attacks, and therefore his economy and his technology is a little bit delayed. He doesn't have any attack upgrades yet. He's just finishing up +1/+1 for his ranged units. All the while, Playa already has he has +1 finished for his ground units, and he's working on +2 right now. So he's not ridiculously far ahead in the upgrades, but he's feeling okay. Especially the Chrono Boost, the Protoss allows them to pick up upgrades pretty quickly. Does Dark Templar attack? Okay, Honeybear cleans up the Warp Prism, which is very good for him. He also cleans up the Dark Templars without losing that 4th base. The question now is, though, what is the follow-up for Honeybear? I guess it's probably going to kind of is just looking like a Roach Hydra Viper follow-up. He's building 5 Vipers. I guess no Roaches so far. A little bit. I'm a little unsure of the massive amount of Zerglings that he has. But if he does have very good control. And you know, he's a better player than me, so he should be able to make it work. If he believes that that's the right composition for him. Usually you see Roaches instead of those Zerglings to complement the Hydras. The Roaches are very, very good at tanking damage, whereas Zerglings not so tanky, but they definitely deal a lot of damage when they get up close with their opponent. And then along with the Vipers that are coming out, actually they're already out, these Vipers will be able to pull, there's 5 Vipers to the 4 Colossus of Playa, although Playa does have, he's got 4 Archons, not Archons, 4 High Templar that can feed back the Vipers, so it's a little bit of a micro battle to start with at the beginning of this fight to see if Playa can pick off the important units of Honeybear before Honeybear picks off the important units of Playa. He lays down a couple of force fields to try and keep him out of there. If Honeybear gets feedbacked on most of his Vipers, if he's able to pull a couple of the massive units like the Colossus across these force fields, he will break the force fields, and he does do that. He pulls 2 Colossus, but he only takes down 1 of them. There are 3 remaining, and the Archon died, but there are 3 Colossus is definitely enough to take care of pretty much all of this army with the buffer of force fields and stalkers, and so Honeybear is going to have to back up. What is he building as a response? He's just building more Zerglings, because I think part of that is he really wants to, he knows he needs to defend quickly, and he needs to make some units that build quickly. So he gets that swell of Zerglings, and that brings him up to max supply again, and he's on an army that it's not extremely cost efficient. If the Vipers do well, if the Vipers get the pulls that they need onto those very expensive Protoss units such as the Colossus, then suddenly Honeybear's army becomes quite cost efficient because, well, maybe not even cost efficient, but just very effective. If you're able to pull those Colossus out of the fight, suddenly your Zerglings and your Hydras live for a whole lot longer, and the high DPS that they have will help kill off that army real well. He gets 3 great abducts onto these Colossus, killing them off before being able to be feedbacked. He's trying to get 1 more. Playa has to recall back home. He knows he can't stay in that fight. If we take a quick look at the economy, the bank of both of these players, Playa he's kind of running out of money, although he does have a higher income, so if he takes some okay fights, that higher income will help him out. He has 4 bases fully quite well saturated before Honeybear does. Playa, a player, sorry, a player that he's very extremely vigilant, extremely not tenacious, but vigilant and diligent about continuously creating probes, almost to maybe in excess. I'm not entirely sure. 90 probes is pretty ridiculous, and it means your army is not quite able to be as strong. Like as we see right now, if we look at both of these players are maxed out. Honeybear does have the army supply lead by a bit. However, it kind of depends if who can control their army better to be most effective against the other's composition. A couple of force fields being laid down by Playa to try and kind of disengage even a little bit. I think he just wants to get home. Or at the very least, pull out a couple of feedbacks on the Vipers. However, almost all of the classes get picked off, and that's huge for Honeybear. Without any of those Colossus, Playa is really not able to do a whole lot of damage to this army. The storms are pretty good, but there's just not enough of them. And there's like, well, I was about to say there's more pulls on those Vipers. I believe they have enough energy to pull again, but no huge need to. They might make use of a couple blinding clouds on those stalkers, or even the immortal, 1 or 2 immortals that are in there. But for right now, Honeybear taking a pretty commanding fight. Playa, he's just working on scrabbling to get all of his high-tech units back online. He only has 2 robotics facilities, which not terrible. I wonder if 3 maybe would have been better, or maybe even going for a few more High Templar. It's really hard to say. It's hard for me to say. I'm nowhere near the level of these players. They're insane with their decision making in their micro. However, great storms coming down onto Honeybear, who's been kind of sandwiched into this back, up against the wall. In this fight, he does manage to maintain a decent army lead, although he might get cleaned up right here, which is not. It's not great or terrible for either player. A lot of probes went down for Playa, although he had a ridiculous amount to begin with. He had 90 probes to start with, and so now he's down to an even probe count with his opponent. However, Honeybear does have that bank. He's got 2k minerals, climbing up to 1,000 gas again, banked up, while Playa is just running relatively dry. Well, he's got a very similar income, but yeah, he doesn't have that ability to remake an army quite as well as Hypernia does. People, stop having H's in your names. Honeybear, able to remake his army very, very quickly and very, pretty cheaply, really. Roach Hydra is a pretty cheap army. You kind of win the numbers game with it. You say, yeah, I can lose an army, that's fine, but if I kill off all of your Colossus and all of your High Templar and lose all of my Roaches and Hydras, a Zerg player is quite happy to do that pretty much all the time. Because that means they can remake a ridiculous amount of Roaches and Hydras faster than a Protoss can make those Colossus, and so, which are really the hardest counter to the composition. However, we have a fight going down. Will the pulls by the Vipers be good? They definitely are. Those feedbacks were not able to come down on time, and I guess Playa doesn't even have enough High Templar to really feedback all those Vipers properly. And it looks like dropping down 120 supply to 170. Playa might be tapping out of this game pretty shortly. Calls GG. Taps out in the fight against Honeybear in a 25-minute game. Honeybear pulls it out over his opponent. So, well played by Honeybear for that first game. It was a game of some aggression to begin with, by both players. It started out with the aggression by Honeybear with the Zerglings. onto the base of Playa, but he held it out. And Playa had a counterattack onto Honeybear's base, but with those Dark Templar, but Honeybear was able to clean it up pretty well, retained a lot of his drones. And then it turned into just a macro game and a lot about the army engagement. And Honeybear just managed to pull it out and win overall. So we will be moving on to King Sejong Station to play the second game of the 3-game series. Honeybear leading 1-0. Playa, he needs to win both of these games to make it back into the fight, to have a chance at going straight into the grand finals. So I am hosting up the map for both the players, inviting them in. And pretty quickly we will see if Playa is able to, maybe he pulls something out of his hat to be a little bit tricky, or maybe he just is, yeah, I don't even know. Both players played really standard. Pretty standard. But they both played just very well. It was pretty back and forth for a little while there, but Honeybear did manage to edge it out. We have Playa, he's all readied up. Honeybear, we haven't quite heard from him yet, but we will see. Looks like he is ready. And we'll get this game going. Playa, he's kind of hoping for a bit of a Protoss buff with Legacy of the Void or something, and we'll see. There's a lot of opinions always. Everybody always has a bias for their own race, and there's the discussion is never ending and sometimes almost, well, not pointless, but it's a tough discussion to make because it's hard to tell whether it's a race or just sometimes like a style of the opponent or a style of yourself that makes it hard to actually claim that victory over certain races or certain styles. So down in the bottom right corner of this map, we have taken the first game in this series. We have Honeybear, the Red Zerg. He is defending his title so far as champion of the Midwest Cup, and he hasn't been playing a lot, but he said he'd come back for this just to keep himself up on top. A little bit of banter back and forth about the removal of Colossus with Heart of the Swarm, mostly due to the Viper apparently, but it's a tough little dance. And we'll see if Playa decides to maybe do something different, not even too sure, but he is spawning up in the top left side of King Sejong Station as our yellow Protoss. He is Playa. So a little bit of strategy discussion between both players. Trying to decide how to counter each other, and it is it's not a super straightforward matchup all the time. There are a lot of counters back and forth between everything. If you, like they were saying, if you do just go for Phoenix as a Protoss, if you have amazing micro with Phoenix, you can manage to kind of handle the Muta Corruptor Deathball or Cloud if you really need to, but it is really tough. Playa choosing to pylon block again on Honeybear. Honeybear going for the safe 14-15 pool opener sort of thing. Oh, these two. So I kind of figured there'd be a little bit of salt between them, but they're both very strong-willed players, and they both, I think, they're very okay with expressing their opinions on the game. So Honeybear doing something interesting here. He takes a quick extractor to get what should be an even faster speed than last game. I think last game he took his extractor after he actually got his expansion down. So it meant his speed wasn't quite as quick as it will be this game. It's definitely not the fastest Zergling speed that you can get, but it will be, it might catch Playa unawares. We'll see. Playa taking his natural expansion, while grabbing his mothership core. Always a good choice to get a mothership core real quick. And he hasn't decided to make anything out of the gateway yet. Usually people will at least get a stalker out, or sometimes they'll get just a zealot out before the cybernetics core actually finishes. But Playa instead going with the strategy of, if he sees Zerglings coming up, he'll wall off here with a pylon and keep himself that way. Honeybear, I thought he was going to be a little more aggressive. He might still be, but he is going for these two hatcheries pretty quick. And yeah, as I had mentioned, he got enough gas up to get speed on his Zergling started, took the drones out of gas so he could focus more on minerals, because early on in the game, a lot of Zerg's units are just minerals, and then a little bit later in the game, so we're going to just for a little bit, we're just going to do that. We're going to silence him, because there's just a lot of talking. Anyway, we can unsilence them a little later. But yeah, so yeah, he's going to have that quick Zergling speed out, and then he stops gas mining for a little while, just because there's a lot of mineral units and a lot of mineral buildings that you need to build early on as a Zerg, with drones and queens and Zerglings. Then he's going back into gas, maybe to get up to his lair. I would kind of think. It kind of looks like that. Usually if you're going for some sort of roach attack, you'd probably get more than just one gas. So what has Honeybear seen with his Overlord Scout? He sees this Stargate again, so same kind of play from Playa for the most part. The Twilight Council, I think that's coming up a little bit more quickly than before. So maybe a more aggressive, maybe he does some sort of Phoenix charge Zealot attack or something like that. Maybe I'm a terrible Protoss as well. So he's starting out with an Oracle, but he's actually following up with a Void Ray. So it might be more of an all-in that he is going for in this case. He's going to be pretty aggressive, and he's going to do quite a bit more with these two Zealots. We'll see if Honeybear loses this Queen. He looks like he has some pretty good micro so far on it. And just down to, I think it was down to a couple of hit points, like one more hit by any of those units would have taken that Queen out, but he gets pretty good drone micro, a good surround on the Zealots, and the Protoss gets out of there with only one worker killed. All the while, Honeybear has taken his lair. He's got it started. It's just finished up and is taking all of the rest of his gases. So, I mean, with that amount of dedication to gas, I would expect. Okay, he's got a Hydra Den coming down, and he's got a lot of gas going on. So it might be a Zergling Hydra attack similar to last time, but followed up by Mutalisks. This map is pretty solid for Mutalisks because this distance between the naturals is really short by air. Ground units actually take quite a while to get across the map, but air units can be very strong on King Sejong because of all of the cliffs, all of the pathways that ground units have to get around, where air units can just fly over them and do what they want. So we will see how it turns out. The robotics bay coming down for Playa, so he might have one Colossus out by the time this Zergling Hydra attack hits. But we'll see if he's able to really be successful in holding it off. And the big thing with the Zergling Hydra attack is that it forces the Protoss to go down a certain tech path, and then if the Zerg has a decent economy, they can tech switch and just counter whatever they force the Protoss to go into. So he's trying to force the Protoss to get a lot of Colossus, and then he's probably going to try and switch to Mutas. Maybe not. Maybe it might be like last game where he goes into quick Vipers. But we will see. A little bit of an attack going down. However, these Dark Templars are slowing it down a bit. Very fortunate Overseer to end up there. Just in the right spot at the right time with the army to pick off those Dark Templars. A Void Ray coming down to try and do a little bit of harass, I guess, onto maybe some Queens, maybe the bases that are down there. A surround onto the Immortal. Those force fields not quite enough to place properly to stop the Zerglings from picking up that Immortal pretty easily. And then the Hydra's coming in the back. There's really not a lot to pick these off. There's one Colossus coming out of this Robo facility, but even then just one Colossus takes a little while to pick off this many Hydras. A strong dedication by Honeybear on attacking this Nexus, and he's going to, looks like he'll probably, yeah, he will take out this Nexus. So it's a very, it's pretty much exactly what Honeybear wanted. And if you can take out this third Nexus of Playa, it might be unrecoverable damage, to be honest. Honeybear, excuse me, is already in quite the supply lead. He's killed off a lot of workers. Playa leaves the game, and Honeybear finishes up that second game in about half the time as before, and putting himself right away, catapulting into the grand finals, if you will. So we will see Honeybear. He'll be moving into the grand final match of the tournament. So Honeybear will just need to, he just has one best of 5 remaining. And if he wins that best of 5, he claims himself first place again at Midwest Cup and $100 of that $200 prize pool.